The clock ticked away as Vine stood in the kitchen, carefully preparing Jungkook's favorite lunch: grilled salmon with steamed rice, a side of kimchi, and a warm bowl of daejang jjigae. She knew he liked simple yet fulfilling meals, always preferring homemade food over anything else. She gently placed the dishes onto the dining table, adjusting them neatly before taking a step back. Her eyes softened as she murmured to herself, I hope he likes it, though he never says anything. She let out a small sigh, already knowing that her efforts would go unnoticed, just like every other day. It didn't matter how much she cared, he never acknowledged it. Jungkook had left for the office early in the morning, as he always did. But today was different. He had an important meeting in the afternoon, so he was still at home. Getting ready upstairs, once she was done setting the table, she walked toward his room to call him for lunch. As she stepped inside, the cold silence of the room welcomed her. It was always like this, quiet, distant, unwelcoming. She wasn't even allowed to enter his room without permission, but since he was in the shower, she took the chance. Her eyes fell on the bed where a wrinkled white dress shirt lay carelessly. She frowned. He doesn't like wrinkled clothes. If he sees this, he will probably get annoyed. Without a second thought, she grabbed the shirt and brought out the ironing stand. As she ran the iron smoothly over the fabric, she couldn't help but smile bitterly. I do so much for him, but does he even care? Her fingers trembled slightly as she pressed the shirt with utmost care. It was ironic, wasn't it? She always put effort into everything related to him: his meals, his clothes, his comfort, yet he never once showed her the slightest appreciation. Her gaze drifted toward the wedding band on her finger, and an overwhelming wave of loneliness washed over her. She still remembered the day she had lost everything. At just 18, she had become an orphan, left with no one to lean on, no one to call her own. The world had been cruel, turning its back on her when she needed someone the most. But then there was Mr. June, Chuguk's father, her father's childhood best friend. He had stepped in when no one else did. Taking responsibility for her, making sure she had a roof over her head. And eventually he arranged her marriage with Jungkook. She had not objected. After all, who would reject a man like John Jungkook, a CEO, handsome, powerful, charming in the eyes of the world? But the reality was far from a fairy tale. Jungkook had never once shown her affection. He had fulfilled his father's wish by marrying her, but that was the extent of it. He never saw her as his wife, never let her in. He had given her a place in his house, but never in his heart. Maybe I was a fool to think I could ever be enough for him. Her grip tightened on the iron as she swallowed the lump in her throat. It hurt, it always did. The way he kept his distance, how he never spared her a second glance, and worst of all, the way he always showered after touching her. That broke her more than anything, as if her mere presence was something to be washed away. A sharp exhale left her lips as she blinked back her emotions. No matter what, she wasn't going to cry, not again. She finished ironing the shirt and carefully placed it back on the bed, smoothing out every crease before stepping back. At least this way he won't have to worry about wrinkles. Even if he didn't care about her, she still cared about him. And maybe that was enough for now. The bathroom door creaked open and a wave of steam curled into the cold room. Jungkook stepped out, his presence effortlessly commanding as always. His damp hair clung to his forehead, water droplets trailing down his sharp jawline, disappearing beneath the collar of his white towel draped over his shoulders. His gaze barely flickered toward Vine, but his sharp eyes didn't miss the neatly ironed shirt laying on the bed. She stood there, lost in her thoughts, staring at the floor until a faint scent of his body wash mixed with the steam reached her. The realization hit her he was right there. Her breath caught in her throat as she stiffened, heart pounding erratically. She quickly turned, intending to leave before he could utter a word, before his cold indifference could pierce through her already fragile heart. But fate had other plans. Her foot caught on the corner of the rug, and before she could react, gravity betrayed her. A gasp left her lips as she braced for the harsh impact of the floor, but it never came. Instead, strong hands gripped her waist, steadying her mid fall. For a moment, time stood still, her eyes widened as she found herself inches away from Jungkook. The warmth of his bare skin seeped through the thin fabric of her dress, his grip firm yet hesitant. His expression remained unreadable, his dark eyes staring down at her, her breath hitched. It felt like a dream, a fleeting moment of closeness, a rare touch that wasn't followed by rejection. But dreams never lasted. Without warning, his hands left her, and just like that, she crashed onto the cold floor. A sharp string shot through her palms as they caught her fall, her knees scraping against the polished floor. She sucked in a breath, but before she could even register the pain, Jungkook had already turned away. He walked past her as if nothing had happened, heading back into the bathroom without a single glance. The door clicked shut. Silence. Her fingers curled against the floor, nails digging into her palms as she fought the sting in her chest. Tears threatened to spill, but she bit her lip, forcing them back. Her throat burned, a sour ache settling deep inside. Why does it always have to be this way? Sniffling, she pushed herself up, dusting off her dress as if that could erase the humiliation. Without another glance at the closed bathroom door, she turned and walked out of the room, her steps slow, heavy. She sat at the dining table, staring at the food in front of her. Jungkook's favorite dishes sat untouched, their warmth slowly fading, but wine didn't move. She just sat there, unmoving, unblinking, lost in the storm of her own thoughts. Her fingers traced the rim of her bowl absent-mindedly, her mind replaying the same painful cycle over and over again. Didn't he see my efforts? Her voice wavered, the words barely escaping her lips. Will he never love me? Then why did he marry me? Her chest tightened painfully as she swallowed the lump in her throat. He always keeps his distance, always treats me like I don't exist, and every time he accidentally touches me, he showers right after. A bitter smile tugged at her lips, but it didn't reach her eyes. Am I something dirty to touch? Her vision blurred as hot tears welled up, spilling down her cheeks. Before she could stop them, she hurriedly wiped them away, rubbing her skin harshly as if that could erase the hurt. Just then, the sound of approaching footsteps snapped her out of her daze. She stiffened. Jungkook, he was coming. Taking a deep breath, she quickly composed herself, forcing her features into a mask of indifference. She didn't want him to see her broken. As the footsteps neared, she picked up her spoon, pretending as if nothing had happened, as if she wasn't breaking inside. Jungkook stepped into the dining room, now fully dressed in his usual crisp suit. His expression remained unreadable, his gaze cold as he pulled out a chair and sat down. Wine hurriedly placed the food in front of him, his favorite dishes, the ones she had carefully prepared with the hope that maybe he would acknowledge her efforts this time. But as always, hope was a foolish thing. He picked up his chopsticks and started eating without sparing her a glance, his movements mechanical, as if he were merely refueling his body rather than enjoying the meal. She watched him silently, her appetite long gone. Her spoon remained untouched, fingers absent-mindedly tracing the edge of the bowl. Jungkook noticed. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw how she wasn't eating, how she sat there, staring at her food as if lost in another world. But he said nothing. Minutes passed, heavy with unspoken words. Once he was done, he got up without a word, grabbed his coat, and left the room. One side blinking away the sting in her eyes before standing up as well. She quietly gathered the dishes, placing the untouched food back into the fridge before heading to the living room. She sank onto the couch, exhaling sharp. Her body weighed down by exhaustion, physical and emotional. Just then, her phone rang. The sudden sound startled her out of her thoughts. She glanced at the screen, and a small figure of surprise crossed her face. Mia, her college friend. Hesitating for a second, she finally picked up. Hello. A high pitched, overly excited voice came from the other side. Whiny, is that you? A small, genuine smile curled on Wine's lips for the first time that day. Yes, it's me, Mia. Oh my god, I don't believe my ears. It's been ages. How are you? I'm good. What about you? Everything is great. Actually, I called because I have some exciting news. Oh, I'm inviting you to my baby shower and listen, no excuses. You have to come with your husband, okay? Wine stiffened slightly, her fingers gripping the phone tighter. Mia, actually, he's really busy with work and no, I won't take no for an answer. You have to come and you have to bring him. That's final. One side, feeling a lump form in her throat, Mia tried to understand. Please, please, come. I miss you so much. Please. Her voice was filled with so much warmth, so much excitement that Wine found it impossible to refuse. Okay, I will come. Okay, I will be waiting for you. It's in 2 days, okay? Okay. As soon as the call ended, Wine let out a heavy sigh, staring at the phone in her hands. How am I supposed to ask him? She ran a hand through her hair in frustration, already dreading his reaction. With that thought, she forced herself to get up and complete the rest of her house chores. The exhaustion weighed on her, and eventually she found herself laying down in bed, drifting into a restless sleep. By the time she woke up, the clock read 7 p.m. She quickly freshened up and went to the kitchen, preparing dinner for Jungkook, as she always did. When he finally came home, he went straight to his room to freshen up before settling at the dining table once more, eating in the same cold silence. This time, Wine gathered the courage to speak. Jungkook, he hummed in acknowledgement but didn't look up. Still focused on his plate, she hesitated before speaking again. Today, Mia called. She invited us to her baby shower and she really wants us to come. Would you go with me? For the first time that night, Jungkook stopped eating. Slowly, he lifted his gaze, his dark eyes looking onto hers. Do you think I have time for things like that? His tone was sharp, cutting through her heart like a blade. Her lips parted slightly, but no words came out. She quickly lowered her gaze, swallowing the lump in her throat as tears threatened to spill. Oh, no problem. I'll go alone. He hated how weak her voice sounded. Jungkook wiped his mouth with a napkin, pushing his chair back. As he stood up without another word, he left the table and walked upstairs, leaving Wine behind once again. She sat there for a long moment, staring at her half empty plate before letting out a bitter laugh. Why was I expecting too much from him? She wiped the long tear that slipped down her cheek, shaking her head as if that could push away the ache in her heart. She should have known better by now. After 2 days, One got ready for the baby shower, wearing an elegant dress that enhanced her natural beauty. With her soft, no makeup look, she looked breathtaking. As she stepped into the living room, Jungkook, who was adjusting his cufflinks, turned toward her, and for a moment his breath hitched, his heart pounded faster, his eyes lingering on her a second too long before he hurriedly looked away. While pretending not to notice, simply said, I'm leaving now, Jungkook hummed in response without looking at her. She sighed and left, while he grabbed his coat and headed for the office. Arriving at Mia's house, one was warmly welcomed by Mia's husband. Oh, hello, Wine. Nice to meet you after so long. She bowed politely, offering him a kind smile. Mia soon rushed toward her, embracing her tightly. Wine, where is Jungkook? He was busy, so I came along. Oh, okay, no problem. Come, I will introduce you to everyone. Excitedly, she pulled Wine to the crowd. Everyone, look who's here, our class topper, Wine. The room buzzed with murmurs as heads turned toward her. Wine, you have changed so much. Wine smiled, shaking hands with Elsa. Oh, by the way, meet my daughter, Minnie. Wine crouched down, gently pinching the little girl's chubby cheeks. She's adorable, just like her mom. The girl giggled, hiding behind Elsa's leg. But amidst the joyful reunion, Lena, a former classmate now, holding her baby in her arms, smirked. Oh, look who's here. Her voice carried a sharp edge. Wine glanced in the direction Lena was looking and her breath caught in her throat. There, standing near the entrance, was Chonggu. Minho hurried over to him, his voice lighting up with surprise. Sir, I'm so glad you could make it. Please come in. But Jungkook didn't acknowledge him. Wine hesitated about to approach him but stopped when he spoke. Minho, why didn't you come to my office today? Wine's heart sank. So he came for work, not for me. Sir, I texted you last night. Didn't you see it? You should inform me properly. I don't have time to check messages. Minho let out a nervous chuckle. Ah, my mistake. Please have a seat, sir. Jungkook sighed and took a seat coincidentally near Wine. He remained silent, but she could feel his presence beside her. Meanwhile, their old college friends kept coming up to Wine, excitedly chatting with her, but Lena had other plans. Wine, where is your child? The question hit like a dagger. Wine's smile faltered. Lena, what are you talking about? We are here to celebrate. Oh, I was just asking. You came alone, so I amused. Wine forced a small smile. Jungkook was busy with work, so. Oh, so busy that he can't even make you pregnant. She smirked, her voice dripping with mockery. Wine's finger trembled. Mina, another classmate, chuckled. Maybe she's infertile. Before Wine could even react, a loud, thunderous voice cut through the room. Shut up, you dirty girls. Everyone froze. Jungkook stood up abruptly, his dark eyes burning with rage as he strode toward Wine. Without hesitation, he grabbed her wrist. Don't you dare speak about my wife like that. Lena blinked in shock. What? Your wife? Yes, my wife. John Jungkook's wife. Without giving anyone a chance to respond, he pulled Wine with him and stormed out. Wine, I'm so sorry. But Wine couldn't turn back. Jungkook was gripping her hand tightly, dragging her into the car. The ride home was silent. He didn't say a single word. Inside the living room, Jungkook finally let go of her wrist and exhaled sharply. Wine. She turned to him confused, but then she saw something she never expected tears. For the first time, she saw tears in Jungkook's eyes. Her breath hissed. Jungkook? I am sorry. She blinked. What? Because of me, you had to hear those things. One was too stern to speak. He had never apologized to her before, and he was still holding her wrist. She hesitated before whispering, why do you always take a shower after touching me? Jungkook hesitated, his jaw clenched before he finally spoke. Because I'm scared of women. Wang's eyes widened. What? Jungkook took a deep breath. Once in Busan, I was in a crowded train. A man touched a woman standing in front of me, but she thought it was me. She slapped me, called me disgusting, humiliated me in front of everyone. Even when a kind man showed her a video proving my innocence, she never apologized. One swallowed hard, watching his fingers tighten into fists. Since then, I always remember that moment. Every time a woman touches me, I feel filthy. His voice cracked slightly, but I don't hate wine. She felt her heart pounding. I love you. Her breath caught. What? I have loved you for 3 years, but I was too scared to tell you. Tears welled in his eyes again, his vulnerability exposed. Wine, overwhelmed, slowly stepped closer and wrapped her arms around him. Don't cry, we will figure this out together, okay? I'm always with you. Jungkook stiffened in her embrace, but after a moment he melted into it, gripping the back of her dress as if she was his only anchor. For the first time, he allowed himself to feel safe in her arms.